Welcome to Chronicles and Legends. Please hit that subscribe and let us know in the comments where in the world are you tuning in from. Let's get started. They don't want you to know this. Not the priests. Not the teachers. Not the glowing figures you meet in dreams. Because if you knew what Earth truly was, you would stop smiling at the sunrise. You would stop praying. And worst of all, you would stop feeding them. It starts with a disappearance. Not of a person, but of a pattern. A Jesuit priest, stationed in the damp jungles of Venezuela, wakes night after night to the same impossible dream. A tower of light spiraling into blackness, and a voice whispering, not in words, but in hunger. His name was Tomas Alvera. He was never found. But one letter sealed in a rusted box and addressed to no one survived. Inside, he wrote, "They are not angels. Not demons, they are farmers, and we are the crop." Farron, once a Vatican archivist, had access to things most eyes never see. Black scrolls from Babylon, exorcism transcriptions, field reports from 16th century missionaries. One thread bound them all. Every culture spoke of invisible rulers. But here's the strange part. Not benevolent creators, not omnipotent gods. Collectors, manipulators. Watchers who never show their face, but are always there. Behind the moment of your deepest fear, your greatest love, your most private despair. Farron noticed patterns in the emotions themselves. Not just what people felt, but when and how long. Wars erupt and end with suspicious symmetry. Religious revivals sweep nations at perfect intervals. Mass grief spikes after celebrity deaths, then flatlines, as if something or someone was turning the dial. But it wasn't until Farron cross-referenced mystical texts with EEG data from spiritual ceremonies that the full truth emerged. Emotion is energy, and Earth is designed to extract it. Imagine a coral reef vibrant, teeming with life. Now imagine that same reef, grown in a tank, controlled by lights, salinity, temperature. You think it's nature, but it's a lab. That's what Earth is. A biodome for human emotion. A closed-loop ecosystem. Not for evolution, but for yield. They call it psychic agriculture. We call it life. What makes it all work is invisibility. Not just physical, but perceptual. Because when you pray, when you scream, when you break down at the foot of your child's grave, you are producing exactly what the system wants. Biopsychic discharge, love, terror, elation, regret. It all charges the grid, but the harvesters don't wear horns. They don't need to. They wrote the books you worship. Composed the hymns that move you to tears. They engineered the very shape of your desire. Why build fences when you can build beliefs? You think you chose your faith. You think your sadness is yours. You think your dreams come from inside you. But that's the trick. They don't trap you with chains. They trap you with meaning. Every martyr who died for God. Every soldier who screamed a war cry, every lover who watched the door close forever, all of them were batteries emitting psychic charge moment by moment. That's why tragedy repeats. That's why history loops. Not because we don't learn, but because something feeds when we suffer. And here's where it gets darker. When Farron began to publish his findings, he suffered immediate consequences. Not from governments, not from the church, from something else. His apartment was ransacked, but nothing taken. His phone rang just static, always at 3:33 a.m. His dreams became infected. Bleeding doors, faceless children, entities whispering, "Return to the pasture." He recorded his final session frantic, barely coherent. They see through emotion. Don't feel when you speak of them. Don't love, don't hate, be still, or they'll find you. He vanished 3 days later. There is one question, just one, that threatens the entire system. What if this isn't for us? What if the gods were never gods? What if the promises were always bait? What if you're not the center of the story, but just the crop beneath the storm? Because once you ask that question, you stop feeding. And when enough stop feeding, the system begins to starve. But who, or what, built the system? What intelligence lies just outside our perception, shaping thought, love, birth, and death like a farmer tending fields? Going forward, we peel back the curtain and come face to face with the predators behind the veil. They don't want you to look. They've spent centuries building your silence, but now you're awake. And that is the beginning of the end. They don't wear crowns. They don't speak in tongues. They don't need to. The most dangerous rulers in history have never required thrones, only obedience. And the most efficient prison is the one where the prisoners forget the walls exist. The question, once asked, never goes silent. If Earth is a system of harvest, who then are the harvesters? The Vatican called them angels, the Sumerians, Anunnaki. The Gnostics whispered of archons, but names are camouflage. In truth, they have no names, because names grant recognition. Recognition leads to resistance, and that's the one thing they cannot afford. They are non-human intelligences, not in the sci-fi sense of aliens with ships and tentacles, but far older, far stranger. Think of them not as bodies, but as frequencies. Consciousness without form, perception without pity, intelligence without empathy. Some call them energetic parasites, others hyperdimensional engineers, but to the few who have seen past the veil, they are something worse. Predators of spirit. Not evil, not cruel, just indifferent. Because to them, you are not a being. You are a reaction. You've never seen them, that's the point. They do not show themselves because they don't need to. They don't strike. They suggest. They don't build empires. They whisper into the ears of kings. They don't wage wars. They inspire stories that make men beg for war. Theirs is a dominion of influence. Subtle, surgical, inescapable. They shape reality not through fire or conquest, but through symbol, ritual, and emotion. When a child is baptized, when a soldier kneels before a flag, when a woman lights a candle in grief, that's when they feed. It is said that gods descend. But what if gods were designed? Every major religious structure contains the same formula. A divine figure you must obey, a punishment you must fear, a salvation you must chase, and rituals to keep your soul compliant. Whether it's a prophet in the desert, a savior on a cross, or a bodhisattva under a tree, each icon carries the same blueprint. Sacrifice, suffering, submission. These aren't paths to enlightenment. They are blueprints of containment. Because when you kneel, when you weep, when you surrender your power, they collect. And when your faith burns brightest, that's when they feast most deeply. History is not a straight line. It is a spiral. And they spin it. Every few centuries, civilizations collapse only to be rebuilt in almost identical form. New faces, same gods. New ideologies, same emotional architecture. Ancient Rome bled for Jupiter. Medieval Europe wept for Christ. Modern man kills in the name of freedom. Different costumes, same script. Why? Because pain is eternal, and pain is profitable. You might think rejecting religion frees you, but rebellion itself is energy, anger, outrage, despair. And they feed on that too. Think of it this way. When a sheep runs from the pen, the farmer doesn't panic. He opens the second gate. Atheism, nihilism, cynicism, new pens, same energy. As long as you react, they are fed. But their most exquisite trap waits at the end, not life, but death. The moment your body falls silent, a new theater begins. Tunnels of light, angelic voices, beloved faces bathed in golden glow. You are drawn forward, told you are loved, that you must return, that your journey is not over. But if they shaped your life, why would they not shape your death? This is the final harvest, the moment of greatest vulnerability. The soul, untethered, confused, desperate for meaning, becomes programmable again, a memory wiped reset, reinserted into flesh, back into the pasture, and it begins again. In 1982, a man named Kenzo Imei clinically died for 11 minutes during a surgical error in Kyoto. When revived, he wouldn't speak for days. Then he drew something on his hospital wall, not a tunnel, but a mouth, jagged, luminescent, smiling. He described beings of light, encouraging him to step forward, but he hesitated and the light changed, became cold, hollow, hungry. He refused the invitation and he returned. He would later write, "The light is not love. It is the disguise of hunger." They don't need to conquer you. They don't even need to scare you. They just need you to believe in gods, in punishment, in destiny, in karma, because belief is participation. Participation is permission. Permission is production. They do not want your obedience. They want your involvement. And they've succeeded for thousands of years because no one thought to ask. What if the light is the lure? You feel tired for no reason. You wake up anxious. You sense something watching. You pray, and no one answers. That's not malfunction. That's the mechanism. It means the harvest is active. And if you've begun to notice it, really notice it, you're already ahead of 99% of humanity. But now you must go deeper, because in the next part, we uncover the only question that matters. How do you escape a system built into your thoughts? They've made sure you never ask, but now you will. And nothing will be the same again. You were never meant to ask this question, not in a church, not in a temple, not even in the privacy of your own mind. Because the moment you ask it, the system begins to weaken, and the gate begins to appear. It begins at death, but not the death you're taught to fear. Not the dramatic final breath or flashing lights. No. The real death is silence. That moment, just after your final heartbeat, when everything you thought you were dissolves. Your name, your regrets, your triumphs, even your love. Gone. And in that raw, naked emptiness, a voice comes. Not with words, but with comfort. Come home. It looks like peace. It sounds like forgiveness. It feels like love. But if you step forward without question, you go back. Back into skin, back into grief, back into war and yearning and sleepless nights beneath a sky that never answers. This is reincarnation, not a gift, but a circuit. A looping feed system disguised as spiritual progress. You think you're ascending. You're being recycled. Because every time you return, you forget. You forget the pain. You forget the patterns. You forget the exit. And worst of all, you forget that you ever chose to leave. The system doesn't survive because of strength. It survives because of participation. You consent to return because you think it's holy. You consent to suffer because you think it's deserved. You consent to love because no one told you love too. can be used as bait. But here's the truth. Every emotion you feel is monitored. Not by satellites or software, but by watchers older than time. They don't care who you marry. They care how deeply you grieve when they leave. They don't care what you worship. They care how much fear your prayers generate. Because to them, your soul is a battery, not eternal, just rechargeable. Even if you reject religion, reject the light, refuse the love, there's still another trick: ego-based exit illusions. Some are lured by vengeance, others by unfinished business. Some even by pride. I'm not done. I must return and change the world. But here's the horror. Every reason to return is manufactured. Your mission? Planted. Your karma? Scripted. Your divine contract? A forged document you never signed. Because nothing terrifies the system more than a soul who simply refuses to come back. So how do you escape? Not through rage, not through rebellion. Those are emotional currents, easily absorbed. The answer lies in something terrifyingly simple: stillness. True escape begins with the one thing they cannot use. Not love, not fear, not even faith, but lucid neutrality. An awareness so silent, so unshakable, it cannot be baited, provoked, or seduced. That moment when you do not cling to light, nor run from darkness, when you do not seek, nor submit, when you simply remain aware, that is when the gate appears. Not a tunnel, not a figure, just a choice. In 1974, a woman named Magda Helvig was clinically dead for over 40 minutes after drowning beneath the ice of Lake Norrviken, Sweden. No heartbeat, no brain activity, declared gone. But she came back. When interviewed, she described not tunnels, but a void still vast, echoing. In it, 3 shapes appeared. They spoke of her unfinished work. They offered visions of past lives, future impacts. But she said something most never do. No emotion. No guilt, just awareness. And then something changed. The scene around her shattered like glass struck by silence. And for a brief moment, she saw them, not as gods, not as demons, but as conductors, directors of a play she never auditioned for. She awoke gasping on the shoreline, hours after the search had ended. The real prison is not the body, not even the soul. It's the narrative, the idea that you must earn your freedom, that you are broken, that you must evolve through lifetimes of pain to be worthy. That is the greatest lie. You are not evolving. You are looping, and the system, it's not broken. It's functioning perfectly. So when the moment comes when you leave the body behind, when the sky opens and the light calls you forward, stop, breathe. Remember, do not go toward the light. Do not go toward the shadow. Do not answer any name that is not your own. Hold still. Because they only have power when you move, when you feel, when you beg, when you believe. They don't hide the truth. They bury it in beauty, in symbols, in songs that move your heart, in light that makes you weep. But beneath all of it is one cold truth. You were never meant to escape, and yet, somehow, you've seen through it. You've followed the thread. You've stared into the system and watched it blink. Now there is only one thing left to do: refuse the return. Not in hate, not in fear, but in quiet, conscious rebellion. Because freedom was never out there. It was the one thing they trained you never to notice. Awareness, pure, unshaped, unused. And that they cannot harvest. If you've heard this, truly heard it. It means something ancient inside you is waking. Let it wake. Because while most souls are dreaming of escape, You are remembering that you were never trapped, only distracted.